Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am getting ready to start on something, and I realized when I got ready to start that I don't think I've ever actually done a video on how you sharpen a Tanto. Now, there's Americanized Tanto, I should say. So now this is my cousin Jake. Recommended me to this guy. He's a friend of my cousin Jake's. He sent me a Recon 1 Tanto with serrated edges, and that's the other thing I'm gonna do. If I get time in this video, I might break it up and make this is gonna be a long-ish video because I kind of want to show you guys exactly. Now the thing with this has obviously been almost chisel ground, and the guy is a volunteer firefighter, and this knife has seen some damage. So what we're going to try and do is I'm going to try and get this turned around and get down on it so that you guys can see. But like I said, I realized I'd never really shown you guys how to do it. Now, I will say before I start, there are times when a fixture system has a distinct advantage. Tantos being one of them. It's one of the few times that I can honestly say that I think a fixture system does provide for someone who's never done it before. Now, I've sharpened a lot of Tantos. I don't have a problem with it. I can maintain that secondary point or reestablish it. In this case, more reestablishing than anything. It is. I'm gonna have to adjust a misgrind on it, and then I'm probably gonna clean it up a good bit. But it's one of those things that if you are a novice at sharpening, you are going to want to take a good hard look at this. And this is the one that I screwed up a lot of knives in practice. Now, not customers' knives. I went to the swap meet down here. I'd never really sharpened one until somebody asked me if I could, and I was like, let me try something first, because I'd sharpened Japanese style Tantos before. If you are trying to maintain that specific point that's on an Americanized Tanto, which is the point, I don't even have another one to show you guys, really, I don't think. Oh, I do, but it's in the case. That secondary point, which comes in handy in a snap cut, which basically allows you to pierce that skin and get a deeper, basically it makes a wedge that goes in to the skin like this, as opposed to something that's rounded and is going to bounce off. It breaks that surface tension and penetrates. And for a snap cut, which is a knife fighting thing, that you, instead of a slash, it's just a snap. You snap it with your wrist, and it's usually something that you're aiming for, like a forearm, whatever is presented. It's not the big plunge or the big slash that you're looking for. It's just a quick snap, and you can, with these, you can lay a pretty devastating cut on a forearm, things like that. That's one of the benefits of these. So if you're trying to maintain that, you have to learn how to do it. Now, I learned how, like I said, I was practicing on a bunch of swap meet knives until I got it to where I was good at it. I bought a bunch of Duck brand knives, I think, at the swap meet just down here at the corner about 5-6 years ago, right after I first retired, because I had a guy to ask me. And I sharpened all of them, and I screwed up, and I learned what I was doing wrong, and I figured it out. And now I do Tantos for people all the time. It's like sharpening two knives. They're very distinct thing, and it can get hazardous because I get way up on it like this to maintain that angle so that I'm staying consistent, almost like I'm sharpening a chisel, which basically you're sharpening a chisel here with a V-grind, and then you're doing the flat like a knife. So it's a distinct process. So I'm gonna get everything set up. I just lifted the canopy. I'm finally feeling okay enough that I opened up the canopy and lifted this place. It's a mess up under here. There's stuff that has blown around. I'll show you in a minute. There's stuff blown all over the place. It was windy enough. It blew a shovel and a hoe off of my wood deck over here onto the ground next to it. I think the canopy, or this canvas tarp that was over some other stuff, got blown loose and took that stuff with it. So yeah, let me get this turned around, and I'm gonna get into, like I said, this is gonna be a long-ish video. I don't know how long it's gonna take. I'll get the camera turned around so we can get in on what I'm doing and you guys can see. And I'm going to do this freehand. I gotta get some stones in the water and grab a sweatshirt. It is kind of chilly out here. All right, guys, I am getting stones in the water right now. This is going to be the best view. So this is going to be an off, you know, this is a little unusual. This isn't the way I usually shoot my videos. My videos are usually shot where you can see me, but to be able to see what I'm doing, I think this is the best angle. I do know the workbench is a mess, but pretty much everything out here needs to be here, with the exception of a couple small things. Just need to be put away. So yeah, we are going to do this Recon 1 Tanto. Now I am going to bring it in close so we can get a good look at it. You can see that it has sustained a good bit of damage. I'm going to repair all that, and I'm going to do this, reset this grind. Now this is a Recon 1 that is in, I think this is still AUSA 8 steel, I do believe. It doesn't look like the DLC coating, but we'll find out when we put it on the stones for sure. Alright guys, I'm coming back around here. I just wanted to make sure that I was gonna be in frame enough that you guys would be able to see what I'm doing. I don't care about you guys being able to see my face. So, you guys have seen enough of that already. So what we're gonna start doing is, we're just going to start the actual reprofile. Now I've looked at this a little closer, and it looks to me like this was ground at that angle from the factory. This does not look like something that someone else did. That looks like a factory grind. Now I don't know if, I never owned a serrated Recon 1 Tanto, but it looks almost like it was intentional. But we're gonna try and make this a little bit easier to use. It's still kind of breezy out here. I went in and grabbed I have a little pullover fleece that my father got for me. My wife and I have matching ones. My father got them for us. We made a trip from Japan one time. He got them for us. So just warm enough for a day like today. So I'm trying to look at this and think what my approach is going to be to this. First of all, I got to do some heavy work on this anyway, so I may as well just not even mess around with that 220 grit stone. So I may as well go ahead and get this coarse diamond out and start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and remove these chips that I'm seeing. These heavy chips in the front edge, and I'm going to try and smooth this angle out a little bit. I don't think I would have to take off so much material to make those two angles marry up, but the thing with a Tanto is you want to stay pretty consistent with the amount of work you do on one side versus the other. I'm saying the forward versus the bottom, the rear. Because if you don't, you can really screw up that secondary point. And I mean, it's pretty screwed up now, but I would at least like to be able to try and maintain it. This feels like it might be AUSA 8. So this is it feels like an older, the way it's cutting on this stone. So let's see. I'm going to try and reestablish that secondary point. This is why I charge a little bit extra for Tantos. So I've got a good bit of work done on this. This is a really, really coarse diamond plate. The key is to try and keep an eye on both sides of that secondary angle and make sure that you're marrying them up. And I'm hoping that I'm staying in frame, but I have to be able to look at it myself sometimes too. That's going to require a good bit of material removal. We're going to be here for a little bit, guys, so I do want to find that same angle, and this has been sharpened by someone else. I can see where it's bellied out in the very center of that, so I'm gonna have to try and get that cleaned up all the way down to that secondary point where I'm not gonna have a good consistency on both sides. So I don't know if maybe this was done on a pull through or if somebody did it on a grinder of some sorts, but it definitely has a distinct. Let me come around and I'll actually show you. Let me see if I can bring this in on this. Can you guys see where there's a definite spot where that angle, where that comes down, and then there's that spot there and that spot there? I'm trying to see if I can find a... There we go. Yeah, you can kind of see it where it basically comes all the way down here and then it swoops back up. That is either a very bad factory grind or someone else has tried to sharpen this. Now what I'm trying to do is, if you see on this side where I actually have started the repair, I kind of have reformed that secondary point, that angle there at that secondary point. But all right, back to work. Wasting time. So the thing is, I'm gonna have to take material off because these don't marry up. So it's just windy enough that it's not the greatest out here. It's not horrible. Now, the thing is, I try not to go straight. I still try to go, if you watch, I still try to go at an angle so that these serrations are still going in the direction of cut. So I'm still wanting those serrations to have that, those micro serrations to go in the direction of what you would cut, like a unidirectional saw blade. So I'm gonna pause for a minute, guys, because I have got to clean this diamond plate off a little bit. It is it's almost looks like it's got some rust and stuff. I did leave everything under here when we had that bad rainstorm and everything, and I think it just needs cleaned up a little bit. I've got a brush and stuff out here, but I'm not gonna hold you guys up while I do that. So give me just a minute and I will be back. All right, guys, so I cleaned my plate off. It wasn't as bad as I thought. It was just gunk that was on it. So like I was saying before, and this was an extended break. I actually was gone for a little bit longer, a lot longer than you guys saw. Got a couple calls and took care of a couple things. I tried to figure out a way to fix my wife's computer. It's not making a sound, so I hooked up a Bluetooth. She wasn't happy with that, so now we're fighting. So at any rate, like I was saying, what you want to try and do is you want to maintain the angle, and now that I have pretty much have a good angle on both sides of that, nice and straight, I'm probably going to leave that area there alone. I don't want to take off material just to be aesthetic. So all I'm trying to do now is just marry up these two angles on the front. So I've got that just about even. So now the next step is to just continue to work on that until I get all those chips out. So I'm going to want to do this evenly on both sides just to even out this edge and take out these chips. And so with a really aggressive stone like this, it won't take too long. But the flip side of that is I also want to take some more material off of this side to even these angles up. So that marriage of those two angles is not the same on both sides yet. And I want it to be as close as possible, and we're just about there. So, next step. Down here on this lower edge, I want to make sure I'm keeping these angles as even as I can. Ooh, this one's bad. That's a bad one. It's a bad one, boys. Now, I'm not using a lot of pressure. It may look like it. It's just looks like I'm using a lot of pressure. This one is going to be a kind of a drawn-out process on this knife. The other thing, too, is knowing where to stop. So you're not overrunning your angles, guys. She's pissed at me because I did something to try and help. I don't understand. Wives. Can't win, can't lose. Can't be right or happy sometimes, I guess. I had a solution for the lack of sound coming out of her computer. Her computer has a bad soundboard. And so I took a set of Bluetooth speakers in, and she's like, I don't want that. No, she's just being stubborn. So that angle's good. This one is the one that's going to take some work. Now I am going to contact the owner because my angle at the edge is good. It's just that there's some material back here. I've almost got this evened out now. This needs to come down a little bit. Now, knowing when to stop, when I say knowing when to stop, is knowing when to stop on the travel so that you're not rounding this over. What I'm trying to do is reestablish that initial Tanto point that was on it. So this is why I charge extra on these. The starting price on these is more than the starting price on a regular knife, because it requires a little bit more eye for detail, maintaining the proper angle, maintaining everything that you're trying to keep even, and with these half serrated ones, it comes into play a little bit too, because you don't want to go sharpening down onto these too much. Now I'm going to touch these up, and I'll show you how you can touch these up. Usually serrations don't need too much work, but I think we're at a point where I want to take a look and make sure that I've got all those nasty big chips out of this, and the tip is good. So I want to inspect my current work, and I think now we can step down almost. Yeah, I think we're good to go to a 220. I want to take this down just a little bit more. At the heel of that, and not necessarily the heel of the knife, but the heel of that edge, that second edge. I'm going to take that down just a little bit. Now, I've got a bit of a discrepancy between angles, between this side and this side. Just a little bit, but I'm going to have to... Now, could I do this on a 220 and rectify that angle difference? Yeah, but it's just quicker. And now I've got it. It's not quite there yet. So I'm going to have to keep taking material up, because what I'm trying to do is steepen this angle up and relax this angle back just a little bit, because like I said, it almost was chiseled, and so what's going to happen is it's going to have a wonky feel when it cuts. But now my angles, even though this has a wider, you can see where I'm marrying this up. it's a wider angle, but my angles are apexed and they're pretty even. I've reestablished that primary, or sorry, not primary, but that secondary point, and the damage that was up here on the front is all but gone. There's just one right there, a small one right there, but those will come out as I start going up. So what we're going to do is, this is apexed, and I think we're going to work our way down the grit and see if we can't just do that work on the 220. So that's our next logical step. Go back down to a 220, and then, like I've said before, higher grit is not going to show, or your higher grits, as you go, you're going to be able to see spots that maybe you missed on the lower grits because, you know, the heavy scratch pattern will obscure your ability to see any spots that you missed. And as you go up, as you go up in grit, you're getting a finer scratch pattern, and you'll see those areas where you're not quite getting it on the stone. If that makes sense to you guys. I don't know, maybe I'll explain that. I do owe you guys a video about strops. It's been brought to my attention that I have said that several times. But then again, I'm just now getting around to this. So now we're going to work our way back and forth so that we continue to maintain that angle that we want on both sides, and we maintain the point where those angles marry up on both sides. And we want to keep that even. Because if you don't, what you have is an awkward spot where those two angles are not the same on both sides. We're just about where we want to be on that angle. This side needs a little bit more work. This is where it gets tricky, is when you start working on the smaller stones. I did a recurve Tanto here a few months back. That was fun because that basically meant that I had to do the knife, this part of the knife, on stones that were this big. All I'm doing here is this side needs to come up further. There we go. That's where I want it. And then we're going to just knock the burr off on this side. Now we're at even points on that Tanto, and we're going to go ahead and go up to the 400 grit. I've removed that scratch pattern. This has to be AUSA 8. It is cutting really easily. Like I said, you gotta monitor how much pressure you're using. If you are using too much pressure, you are going to roll that edge on some of those softer steels. This would be a steel that I think would be something that you would not want to use any pressure on. It's feeling a lot like AUSA 8. It's getting really sharp like AUSA 8 does real quick. Like I said, once you get good at it, you can pretty much hear when it's time to go back to the other side of the blade without necessarily counting your strokes. I don't count strokes anymore. I just listen for the feedback. on this one that needs a little bit more attention than... I think we've just about got them all. The little chips. Now, I will tell you, some people say, oh, you have to get all the chips out on your coarse stones. I don't necessarily agree with that. What happens is, and I'll explain it later, but as your chips get smaller, you want to progress to your smaller stones, because what happens is, especially on water stones, the slurry and the abrasive that are touching are smaller and allow you to not be putting abrasive up into those larger chips and keep eroding them away. As long as you have gotten it down to a point where it's almost gone, if you stay on coarser stones, sometimes you're not going to get it all the way out. It's just going to continue to erode out. It's windy again. I think we got another storm blowing in. May have to take this canopy down again tonight. That's a pain in the ass when I have to keep taking it down and putting it up, taking it down and putting it up, but I'd much rather do that than rip it. So, like I said, once you get, and there's a good bit of work that I did, guys, that I didn't record, just because I didn't want this video to be hours and hours long. So a lot of the work that went into that diamond plate and everything, you didn't see a lot of it. I took an extended break, I cleaned it, and then I came back out and started working again. Went back in, and then came out, had to re-wet the diamond plate. So you guys missed probably 20 minutes of me taking the chips out of this, because, you know, I mean, it's the same process. It doesn't need to be that long a video. This is definitely AUSA 8, not XHP. You can tell by the way it cuts on these stones. So easy to cut. XHP is a lot harder. AUSA 8's not a bad steel. Cold Steel did a very good job with their AUSA 8. I always liked their heat treat on their AUSA 8. It came out good. It's not a high-end steel by any long stretch, but it's definitely something that does work well. All right, guys, here, let me wipe this off and I'll show you where we're at. So, we have reestablished that primary point. We have cleaned, that's just gunk. We've removed the chipping from the blade. I am going to touch up the serrations. We have an even secondary point on both sides, as you can see. One does kick out a little bit, but I can't really do too much more about that because it's the way this was cut in when somebody else sharpened it. And I am going to touch up the serrations here a little bit later. So I'm going to pause for a little bit, and we'll come back when I hit the Chaucerra stones. All right, guys, I actually lied to you. We are not going to do anything else on this. I remember talking to this guy. We are going to leave this right around 1,000 grit. I'll see how it looks on the strop. This guy is a volunteer firefighter, and so he's going to want a knife that has got a good bit more bite for things like seat belts, things like that. So it's feeling kind of strange. So as I get higher up in the grit, because now I'm at the point where I'm not necessarily what I consider sharpening. It's part of the sharpening process. I'm actually honing this edge. I'm afraid that maybe somebody has went at this with an angle grinder or put it on a bench grinder or something, and I think I've got all that funky material that I was seeing that came off. I went back while I had you guys paused. I went back down to 400 grit and worked my way back up again, and took off. You'll be able to see it. Maybe I can bring this in and show you guys. I took off significantly more metal. You can see where I'm getting into the thicker part where the hollow comes up. Unavoidable because there was that much damage. I was seeing material that looked like it may have had that straw color underneath where it may have lost its temper. So I went back and I took off more material just to try and make sure that that's all gone, because I don't want that edge to roll. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the best thing I've got for serrated blades. Now, Cold Steel serrations have got these tiny, tiny little cuts in it. You can't do a lot with those. But the nice thing is they usually don't dull up too bad. Even this one that has had a lot of stuff done to it has not gotten too bad. What I have is, let me see if I've got it out here instead of having it in the house. And I think it's in the house because I used it as a steel on the wife's kitchen knife. So give me just a second and I will bring it. All right, guys, I got it. This is a small ceramic rod that came with the Edge Pro system. Now, I am a little disappointed. It has got a couple spots that are really, really, really flawed and chewed up, but I know where they're at. So basically what I do is I get this up in my hand, I get it up at my chest so I can see exactly what I'm doing, and I try to marry up that entire section with this round one, and it's not coarse enough that it's gonna, like a lot of people use a round diamond and then you wind up where it hits right in the center. It hits right in the very center and you get like a valley in it. This will maintain the small angle on that. And I've done a couple of full serrated knives this way. It takes a while. This is actually, if you guys ever watched me showing off that Spyderco Matriarch 2, the sharpness on it, doing just paper slice tests with those serrations, I did that with this. And then on the back side, I hit it with a 1000 grit stone like this, just to smooth the back. And I'm going to do that too, so that's got to go in the water for a couple minutes while I'm doing this. Just to clean these up. The problem with this, every one of these, to get down in here, you've got to get past that thumb stud. And I wind up not being able to get it the way I want. This is going to have to be cleaned up. So I can see where someone else has tried to do this. Here's the thing. These will be so much better for this in the long run, because they get dull. The serrations don't get as dull, and I'm not a fan of serrations, but for a guy that is going to use this as, say, maybe a firefighter or a police officer where they might have to be cutting seat belts and things like that, it definitely cleans those serrations up. And I've taken some pictures. I'm going to post them up before and after, but you can see where I've gotten those serrations really clean, really sharp, ready to go. Now the final step is, because that does form even this really super fine, I think this is a 1500, I think they said this comes out at about 1500 grit or something like that with the Edge Pro literature. It still is going to form a little burr on the backside. So that's when you take your small stone and you just line that up nice and smooth with the backs of those serrations, and you just take off any burr, just gentle, really, really, really super gentle. And what you're doing is you're bringing that back up. It's got a nice cutting surface. I'm going to go through and hit these. This needs wiped down. It's pretty full of gunk. Just one more quick touch up on those. It polishes up nice and clean anything that's in there. Like I said, I can't do much for these really super shallow, these little tiny ones, but the big ones that do the majority, the lion's share of cutting, I definitely can do. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to strop this on leather first, before I put it on diamond strops, just to make sure I've gotten all that burr off. So I was talking with a guy yesterday. We were talking about strops, and I am going to do a strop video. I might do it today. Who knows? Might do it on a live feed and just talk about strops. The thing about strops is people seem to think you have to have these high-end, expensive strops, and you really don't, guys. You really don't. This is like, people are like, oh, you should buy this strop, and this is amazing, and use this compound. I use the hard compound that you would use on a buffing wheel, and this is a 2x4 on a 2x6 with a piece of leather belt that I screwed on and used what was left of the belt to cover the screws. Cost me all of whatever it cost me for those big Torx screws that I put in it. So you don't have to have something super fancy. Those balsa wood strops that I use, people are like, oh, those must cost an arm and a leg. They're like 19 bucks each, and they last a really long time. The more expensive thing in that equation is the diamond spray that I use. So, like I said, Stones, yes. Don't chintz out on stones. Your lower grit stones, yeah, you can go low budget, because a 1,000 grit stone or a 600 grit stone, you can get away with a cheaper stone. When you start getting above 1,000 grit, that's when you need to start looking at that the cost equals quality. On a coarse stone that you're going to wear out, you don't need to spend a bunch. There's a lot of really nice cheap water stones out there. I use king stones, the king home stones. For my 1,000 grit, I think they're $10 each. For my water stones, I use these. These are $17 each. I think for the Edge Pro 1,000 grit, I think it's like $17. They're not that expensive, guys. Now, once you start getting above 1,000 and you're actually getting into some high quality and you're doing some actual honing and things like that, yeah, you want quality stones. The reason I use the balsa wood is because the leather won't take the diamond matrix the way that the balsa wood does. It does not take it and hold it as well. I have purple ceramic on my pant leg. Like I said, I told you guys it's going to be a longer video, so, and I tried to keep you with me as much as possible, but there was just no way. I started this early at I started this video at 12-ish. I had already done some things and corresponded with some customers. It is now 2 o'clock. I've spent a significant amount of time on this, but it hasn't been consistent. I've run around and done some stuff. So, I mean, there was some repair that needed done on this. But it's done. It's sharp. Now, let me strop these serrations a little bit. Just the backside, just real gentle, because I don't want to dig up a bunch of stuff on my balsa wood strop. So now we're going to pull a sheet out. We'll see how we did. There we go. So now let's look at the serrations. They're not perfect, but I'm also cutting the wrong direction with them. They're cutting. The serrations on this are kind of wonky, but it's cutting, and it's what you would want from a serrated blade. It's not. They're not the big scallops like you see on a spider co. So that is right at 1,000 grit, stropped to half micron. No, stropped to 1 micron, and I'll turn the camera around and we'll take a good look at this edge. So with all knives that come to my house, the final step is, this thing is, I'm not going to take it apart because these things are, I'm not going to lie, the triad lock is a pain to take apart. I've done it. You can do it, but it's not as easy as a lot of other things that I could do. But what I do, every knife, get the nano oil out, put a little drop at the pivot point, use that capillary action, and then I put a drop down, I put a drop across the actual contact surface of that triad lock, and then down in here where it's going to contact. Now I already cleaned out the little pocket. There was a bunch of stuff down in it, but just that little bit, yeah, that makes that disengagement, engagement, that makes everything, it moves a little smoother. It's just those little things you got to do when you get. Sorry about that, guys. My phone rang, and it was a wrong number. So I mean, now I could have taken that thumb stud off to get down into that serrated area a little bit better, but I mean that serration down there is already sharp. So yeah, no, it's just, that's one of the things, you know, when you get somebody's knife in and you do something to it, you want to make sure that I like to make sure that a knife is leaving better than it came. If it came to me dirty, it should leave clean. If it's got some sticky spots, let me see if I can take care of those. It's just the way it should be. That's the way my grandfather did stuff. You know, he borrowed, my grandfather would borrow stuff from the farm down the road, and I remember him telling me once, he's like, boy, if you borrow someone's stuff and they gave it to you and it looked like crap, well, they were kind enough to let you borrow it. Why don't you see if you can't clean it up a little bit? So, I mean, it's just something, it's just one of those country boy things. Be good to people, be good to your customers and things like that. So, all right, guys, that's it. I have kept you guys here too long. It's not as long as one of my live feeds, but it's getting there. I will probably do a live feed a little bit later. I had put up a live feed that for some reason it was up and then it just disappeared. It was about the price drop thing. So we will talk about that later. I'm probably going to do an Instagram live feed here in a little bit. I have not done an Instagram live feed in a long time. I got some stuff I can do. I got some customer interactions I have to deal with. I'm sorry, client interactions. I like that better. Like I've said before, I like that better. It sounds more long term. So other than that, guys, that is what I do when I get a Tanto in. And like I said, I tried to consolidate, and there's guarantee that I'm going to do some editing where I take out some of the stuff that you don't necessarily have to see, that's redundant and repetitive and things like that. So, all right, guys, I appreciate everything. As always, like and subscribe. If you like my videos, you really like them, make sure you hit the like button. And that's how these videos, that's one of those metrics that I just am getting around and finding out from other YouTubers. Likes and dislikes. If you don't like my video, hit the fucking just do it. But if you're gonna give me a thumbs down, a dislike, tell me what about it you're not liking. But with that being said, like I said, the whole like or dislike, the more interaction there is with that, the more these videos get circulated and more people get to see them, and we get a bigger community. I would love to one day have a community this big, as big as Matt. I was watching some of Matt's videos today, and I just the fact that he's got that many subscribers and he still puts that much work into it. So, guys, I'm out of here. I will talk to you later. I guarantee this is gonna be a long video. I apologize, but it's one of those things that no one's seen me do. I'm going to do a strop video. May do it today. Don't know. Depends on how I feel. I'm feeling a little bit better. So, you guys take it easy, and I will see you next time.